The differentiator for me was always, okay, well, where are you going? Because if I know that you want to own 10 properties in 10 years, that's a totally different structure and game plan than it is if you just want to buy one rental property and be done with it. But what ends up happening is a lot of people get stuck talking about the transaction. I want to buy a rental property. Okay, great. Here's your approval for your rental property. But are you wanting to buy 10 more of these, or is this just the one and done? Because then it comes down to deal structure. You don't want to just buy the first one in a personal name and then you realize 2 or 3 into it, like, oh, you wanted to buy 10. Well, why didn't we put these in a company name then, right? Or whatever the case may be.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ultimate Real Estate Lifestyle Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, good friend of mine. I've known in the business for quite some time now, going on 10 years. Kyle Green, who has been a mortgage broker since 2006 and is also an active real estate investor. And he's in the trenches with people every single day, trying to navigate all the nuances and challenges that are continuing to really redesign the landscape in front of us. And so Kyle, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
You're always a happy guy, my friend. So it is great to have you here, and it's good to see your face again. And we just before coming on or going live here, we were talking about the realities of being in the trenches. And when we first met, it was at the Real Estate Action Group. I believe that's where we officially met. About approximately 10 years ago. So we've got quite the history together. And those of you who are in the business, I give my word and my trust to everything that Kyle does. He's by far one of the best people that I've ever seen in the business. And there's not many people whose word or work I trust more. So Kyle speaks to who you are in this business and the relationship we have so far.
Yeah, thanks, Guy.
So before we get into the nitty gritty on business, Kyle, what do you do for fun? Who's Kyle Green when you take all the work and the entrepreneurship away?
Yeah. I mean, I used to play hockey. We were just chatting about how I got a bad concussion playing hockey and actually haven't been on the ice in 3 years, but I do intend on getting back. You can't keep me away from hockey forever, but the concussion was bad enough that it needed some time to heal. Playing more tennis. My wife is actually a wicked tennis player. When I say wicked, I mean used to be pro when she was younger after getting a full ride scholarship down in Kentucky. And then she's playing more recently. And just literally yesterday, she saw that she's now ranked number 1 in the world for the women's 30s category. And yeah, so that's amateurs, not pros, but literally was number 2, and then she just got bumped to number 1 because she placed, I think, second in a tournament recently, and now is number 1. So I have massive shoes to fill. I will never fill them. I'm just going to try my best.
That's an interesting dynamic. So at work you're used to being top in your class. So how does it feel being being a distant second on the tennis court at home?
Yeah, especially in sports usually, because it's funny when I tell other people that oh, my wife used to be pro and this and that, and they're like, oh yeah, so does she beat you? I'm like, what kind of question is that? Of course she beats me. I suppose there's other sports where okay, used to be a professional, I was going to say professional wrestler, but then people are going to think in WWF or something like that. But something where it's more muscle strength. I suppose that maybe male versus female, there'd be a bit more close, but not in a sport like tennis. It's all technique and everything. She crushes me. She literally beats me. She's right-handed. She beats me left-handed. She's that good. So, yeah, we have some bets going on, and if I can't beat her left-handed at least once in the next 12 months, then she's getting a really nice purse, and I really don't want to spend another X amount of money on a really nice purse. So
that's awesome. So you have an active bet going. You got to beat her left-handed. What's the average score right now when she's playing you left-handed?
6-2 or something like that. 6-1, 6-2.
Okay.
I can get a couple games off her, but
you're not getting pummeled. But you've got some work to do.
I'm still kind of getting pummeled. So yeah,
well, you're on the board. You're on the board.
Yeah, I'm on the board.
Yeah, you're on the board. So it could be worse. That's good. Well, I can't wait to follow up with you and find out what's happening there. And speaking of being married, when we met 10 years ago, you were far from that, and I don't even think you guys were together, right? So that's kind of a new thing in the last few years for you, is it not?
Yeah, we got married in 2023. So yeah, it's a kind of a recent phenomenon. Yeah.
Okay, right around the concussion time frame, which that part kind of sucks.
Yep.
I can't imagine we touched on it, but I wanted to save a little bit for this. But it's tough enough being in our business as an entrepreneur, riding ups and downs. But we need our health. Our health is number one. So, what kind of an impact did that have on you in how did that translate into your business in your professional
Oh,
life?
incredible impact to in the negative way. So for perspective, we got married in June on June 17th. We spent it was a kind of quasi destination wedding at a place called La Casa near Kelowna, and then we decided to go to a place called Sparkling Hill for a little bit of a wind down, just to relax before we came home. So I came home. I think it was like a Sunday night. We got home. I had a game on Tuesday night. Got hit. Got quite woozy after that, and concussions take some time to kind of set in. I'm sure you've had some too, Guy. But they take some time to kind of set in. But I had actually mapped it out and planned it. So had already given one of my managers at my company notice. It just wasn't working in the real estate market, and therefore the mortgage industry and market was going through some massive changes for the worse at that moment. And so
Yeah,
I had given one of my managers notice to leave, and I asked him, I can either give you like a 2 week notice, or you can stay for 2.5 months while I'm getting married and kind of wrapping that up, and then the week that I get back, Friday will be your last day. After delivering him that notice and he's saying, okay, I'll stay for that length of time, my other manager gave me notice that he was going to another company. So I'm like, okay, didn't expect that, but can you stay until the Friday that I get back from the wedding? Yeah, no problem. So now I got married, got back. It's the Tuesday night I get hit. Wednesday feeling a little bit off. Thursday, this is feeling rough. Friday morning, I'm not coming in, guys, and I can't work. Like, oh, okay. What's the plan? Like, the two managers are leaving today. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know. And like it was crazy. So we went from
unbelievable.
having three people in management, including myself, to having zero, and trying to work and trying to do my best. And then honestly, it's kind of messes with your head, because I'm like an alpha workaholic ish kind of person, where it's like go go go, like put it on my back and I'll carry you. And sometimes I wonder if the universe was trying to give me a hint, like no more of that. Like, you can't keep piling stuff on your back. This is a wake up call that you have to take care of yourself first and foremost. But it was tough, because you're in a position where you're not making as much money as you have been accustomed to. You have all this pressure from the outside and from the inside that you have to work. You have to put money on the table. You just paid 60 something thousand dollars for a wedding. Your business has been cash flow negative for the last 9 months or whatever, going back to like late 2022. You have other businesses that need cash flow as well, and you have to work, but also you can't.
Yeah.
And that was really, really difficult. So it was definitely a tough time. And I think the emotional aspects of concussions can be really tough to deal with, layering on top of that pressure. So very difficult time. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, it's the whole game we're in with real estate and everything that I do with my clients and my partners. It's all about generating that passive income and protecting you from instances like this. And as we know with entrepreneurs, we don't have a safety net. Our safety net is our business. It is our assets, and that's why I've always had such an eagerness to acquire assets that have a wealth generating component or a passive income generating component to support us in those times when we either don't want to work, but more importantly, when we can't work, when we're not the one in charge. You bring up a couple big points there. Um, First of all, I've never had a concussion that's actually wiped me out,
Mm.
and I know how serious it is, but it doesn't stop me from thinking about every single thing I do personally and how much everybody in my family is reliant on me. And a big pivot that I've made over the last few years, as you know, or was going into land development. But that was such a big wake up call, not only because the market fell out of the bottom, or the bottom fell out of the market on everybody, but the realization of that was, does this actually do what it is that I'm intending, what I got into real estate for? Does it have that income generating component that continues
Mhm.
to work for you no matter what you're doing? The answer for me was no. And similar to you and me in our operational business, we're not building our way out of it and trying to get ourselves out of the weeds of that business, we're always at that risk. We're
Yep.
always at that risk. So I'm really happy to hear that you recovered. And and you're right. I think the universe works in mysterious ways, and it kind of tells us. And that's that. Sometimes that's that sign we need. It's like you're so bullheaded that I need to crush your head in order to help you realize how important it is to not be the
Yep.
one. So good on you for persevering through that. So your wife, she's is she still like that's her profession is tennis? Like that is what she does, or does she work outside of that?
Yeah, so she used to be in marketing. So she used to be marketing to tennis clubs, coaches, and other sports, mostly in the marketing capacity. And then COVID hit,
Okay.
and all of a sudden that work dried up like immediately. At the same time, all of a sudden, two real estate deals came across my lap. One was a 14-unit apartment building flip in North Vancouver that immediately said yes to, and they realized I needed help. And I can go into details about that one in a second. It was a pretty cool deal. And then later that year, a 7-unit building in Victoria as a short-term rental came up, and that was going to be a massive project for her. So she all of a sudden got heavily involved in our real estate deals together.
Yeah.
And now, after kind of settling and looking at okay, what's next. Now she's looking at getting back into the workforce, and she just actually just got a job working at BC Golf as the director of marketing for BC Golf. So interesting
Okay.
that actually golf is a sport that we're wanting to learn together. I'm actually better than her at that sport, which is great. So I'm hoping that I can stay ahead, but I'm not sure. Her competitive nature is. I'm very worried about her catching up to me soon.
That's crazy. Okay. Yeah, well, it's awesome that you have that competition. And I think that you need that, and you also probably need that humbleness on the personal side as well, because you are used to being sort of top of your game on the business side. So I'm sure you're a good sport, you're a good dude, and I know you're taking that well. So it's good
Yeah,
that you have that
yeah,
constant
100%.
positive pressure. Yeah, so that's awesome. So thanks for sharing some of that personal side. I think that ties in nicely to the realities of working and some of the things that we're going to talk about in this business. But I mean, the one thing that I can take away from that personal side of it is the importance of doing what we're doing, and continuing to look at things from a perspective of putting time and energy into things that are going to pay us for the rest of our life. And
Hmm.
I think that's a big focus with my whole pivot in my business and getting back into the roots of why I do real estate in general, and it's also why I do what I do on the coaching and consulting side of my business with helping people understand the realities of what they're investing into. Everybody's after the upside, but it's like, what does protecting your downside look like?
Yep.
And everything is now. We talked about that in the intro as well, or as before we came on. It's kind of, we met 10 years ago, which call us young and spry at that time. Now you're younger than I am by a little bit, but that's like we were in our kind of late 20s, early 30s at that time. Uh, Risk wasn't really a thing. It was just we were eager. We can work our way out of anything. Everything's positive. Everything's upside. Everything's a good deal. Like no matter what, we could make it work. And if anything that didn't work, we could just grind a little harder to make it work. And then fast forward 10 really fast years, uh, we get to see the perspective of the sort of older generation that is always sitting back going, yeah, okay, there, young guy. You just go get a couple more battle scars and then we'll talk. And it feels like we've gotten those battle scars.
Yeah, we
So
do.
let's talk about your operational side. Speaking of battle scars, so tell me about these couple deals, because you're an active investor and an active mortgage broker. Those two things go very hand in hand in our business. So before we talk about the broker side, let's talk about the deals. Tell me
Yep.
a bit about those.
Yeah, so the cool one that came up in 2021. So a broker in my brokerage came to me and said, "Hey, Kyle, I've got this client. He's wanting to buy this building for $10 million, and I don't do commercial lending, so I'm hoping that you can help me out." So I said, "No problem. I'll take a look at it and we'll sort him out." So I have a call with him, start to go through things, and we after diving into it, realized that he's trying to buy a building for $9.5 million, and he has appraisals for all of the individual units because there's 14 of them. Is already strata titled, and he has appraisals saying that they're worth $12.5 million. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. It actually reminded me a lot of what Ozzie Druck used to do. He used to call them skip transfers. So buying a building, buying the whole building, and then flipping out the individual units to individual buyers. And then what Ozzy used to do is he called it a skip transfer because he would never actually touch title. He would assign each of the units in the contract so that they never landed at his point, and he would skip the transfer tax, and then an end buyer would buy the end unit. And so the idea was, if you're buying the units at 50 grand a piece, you sell it to an investor at 70 grand a piece, and you get 10 grand, and the investor gets a bit of a discount because maybe the units are actually worth 80 or 90 or something like that, right? So
Right.
everybody kind of wins, I guess, is the thought process there.
Very, very similar to a double close, but the skip transfer is sort of preventing that double close, right? There's no
Yeah,
close and then a close. The skip transfer is, I'm going to take my fee and just assign you the ability to close it, basically, right?
correct. Yeah. Yeah, so that was the key difference there with Aussie, and we actually did not skip these ones for various reasons. Just because it's actually much harder to skip transfer, and nowadays the government's kind of looking at things a lot more closely.
Yeah.
So we decided not to after getting some legal advice and going through it. Just decided, okay, let's just pay the transfer tax and be done with it. But ultimately, what we ended up doing is I looked at it and I said, okay, this deal seems really cool. So how much money do you have for down payment? And he's like, well, I can muster up about 100 grand. I'm like, oh, 100 grand. So you have 1% down on a $10 million building.
100 grand.
No problem, right? So I'm talking to some private lenders and trying to figure this out. I'm like, honestly, I think what you actually need is you need a general partner with you. You need somebody that can actually do this. He wasn't local, so he was in a different area. We discussed that, like, hey, I think I can piece this deal together because I've been the guy getting the financing on these type of skip transfer deals. I know all the components. I know what we need to make sure that the building has in order to make sure that end buyers can buy something that has been recently converted. So, as an example, you need to make sure that there's a depreciation report done on the building, then whatever is recommended is put into the strata contingency. You have to put that into the strata contingency because lenders have been wary of these in the past where there were these skip transfers. The contingency has nothing in it. They have no visibility on like what work might be coming up on these properties, and so banks sometimes didn't like to do that. I know there's always a challenge with some of the projects that I would work on with Aussie or others in the past. So I spent the weekend, did a pro forma. I created like a multi-tab pro forma. It went through like one of the tabs was like valuations, and I could toggle the valuations on all of the units, and I could tweak them and change them and say, what if they go down 5%, 10% or whatever, and playing around with that. Another one of the tabs was a month-to-month cash flow, because you want to make sure when you raise capital, you never want to raise a certain amount of capital and then go back 6 months later and raise capital again. It always makes people freak out. What if they don't want to raise capital? So you have to make sure you don't just raise enough capital to close. You have to also make sure that you have enough capital to get through your monthly burn. So you have to make sure that, okay, well, we're going to close on these, but then we have a monthly burn of mortgage payments. We have, all of these other expenses we have to make sure that we can accommodate, make sure we raise enough capital to never be in the negative and have a bit of a cushion. And then once we actually close on sales, then we'll be raising money and bringing things back up. And then with that pro forma too, you can tweak it and look at, well, how much equity capital and how much debt capital. So this is one of the tricky parts. And you and I were talking about, risk. I think earlier in our careers, we would have been like, raise it all in debt, like get all of it debt. And guess what happens? The return on investment is higher when you do that, but the risk is higher too. Yeah. And so there's a fine point of like, okay, let's minimize the risk, still trying to maximize returns on it. And so we raised equity capital and debt capital. We structured it as a GP LP type of structure. Legal fees were 80 grand to put this thing together. Crazy. Crazy. But we went through, the property is only 12 units old, or 12 years old. So we just had to do exterior painting because it literally looked like a hospital. You drive by, it's like, what is that building? It just looked like a hospital. It was like this tan color on the outside with like no pop to it at all. So we, repainted the exterior. We renovated some of the units in the interior. And we ended up being successful with flipping out all the units. In fact, we ended up buying one of the units for ourselves to live in. We lowered our GP profits and lowered the purchase price of the unit to save on taxes.
Awesome.
Which was pretty cool. So we bought it, flipped them. Within 10 months, we were able to return investor capital, and the annualized return was about 38%.
Unreal.
return on capital for the investors, which was awesome. My dad ended up being a small investor in it. I was able to give him a check. He's like, "Wow, I want more of these." I'm like, "Me too." So that was a really really cool deal. And timing wise, we closed on those units in April of 2021. The market was still super hot, and we had sold all the units by basically the end of the year. So it
Awesome.
was a really cool project. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And we're gonna get to the other deal, and I want to ask some questions on that deal. But I probably skipped ahead a little bit too quick because I want to give people context of really what you do in your business and how that translated into what you're doing. So let's talk about that before we dive into that deal and your next one a little bit more. What do you do in your business? When I met you, you were pretty much strictly residential, correct?
Mostly, yep. I was probably 95% residential.
Okay.
And over time, over my career, kind of started to do more and more commercial lending. So most of our clients were real estate investors. That became my niche back in 2008. That's when I got started doing, presentations in front of big audiences on educating people on how to invest in real estate and all those nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
And then over time, adding in like a tax component to it. I'm not an accountant, but you start to understand tax really well. And then you start to do some of your own deals. And then you start to understand the legal aspect really well. And then all of a sudden, you become a point of contact for people to say, I've got a deal. How do I do it? What do I structure? And then I'm the first call instead of calling somebody else. So you end up becoming an expert in your field. And so, yeah, most of my clients are real estate investors. And then it just made sense that a lot of the skill set and a lot of the conversations that I would have on the residential mortgages with clients doing joint ventures and more complicated stuff, you end up getting a lot more clients that, hey, okay, I want to buy a multifamily building now, or I want to buy my office building now, or
Yeah.
whatever. And then it made sense to stretch into that. Whereas brokers in my brokerage that are more of a strictly residential, like first time home buyer, and then they get a commercial deal, it's like, you shouldn't bother doing that. You should just get rid of it, defer it, refer it to a commercial specialist. And that's actually what I did to start my career is, well, I guess the very first year when I first started in the business, I worked at the head office of a brokerage and they gave me everything. And so I was actually doing commercial deals when I was like 19 and 20, which was kind
Okay.
of kind of crazy. But eventually when I was like getting into my residential career and having a lot of success, it would derail me to try to like figure this out and learn it on the fly. And you wouldn't be doing the clients a service to do that. So instead I referred it to another person. They would do the deal, but I just said, like, keep me involved in the loop. I want to learn while I hand you the deal and you do it. And then over time, I was able to start to take those deals on ourselves, especially as I grew my team and I had team members on my team that did the residential files and kind of churned
Yeah.
through those. I then had more time to focus on the commercial deals myself.
Awesome. And so what is your percentage now approximately in your business of residential versus commercial?
Yeah, it's still probably 80/20. Volume wise, it might, bounce around because commercial deals are kind of very large, but you might fund a couple big ones in one year and then fund no big ones the next year or whatever. So, it might be 20 to 25% of the overall volume, but as far as the number of deals, it might be between 15 to 20% of our overall number of transactions. They're just larger and more in depth.
Bigger dollars.
Yeah.
There's lots spinning in my head about what rabbit hole we can go down on this stuff, but the one that stands out to me the most right now is we're always serving our clients, and you and I are servers. We do want what's best for everybody. We truly have a genuine nature of wanting to knowing our lane, but also having a great amount of experience and expertise around this. So I think we're very similar in that nature, and most good operators are. Where you're doing mortgage broking, hey, I'm doing real estate investing. But if someone wants to learn multifamily investing or they want to learn mortgage broking, that's one aspect, but it's the expertise and the life experience and the involvement in the industry for so long that gives you exposure to all of those nooks and crannies to do what you really nail down there, which I think is what everybody's really looking for is working with somebody who doesn't need to know everything, but they know a lot about what it is you're getting into, and you can zoom out 10,000 feet and say, okay, I know you asked me to do this one thing, but have you ever thought about these other 20 things that it's going to impact before you go and make your decision? And that speaks, that's only something that comes with experience, but it also speaks to finding the right people, because I do, whether it's people looking to learn multifamily or to learn or find a broker to help them in the investing world, there's a million different options. And let's be honest, there's tons of information out there. And it's why I recommend so many people to you. It's because they're asking me, 5 different questions about 5 different things related to
Mhm.
investing. And, a mortgage broker is why they called me, but it's like, well, but you've got all of these other components going on, and there's only one real person I'm going to send you to, because I know based on experience that they're going to be able to handle all of those things in one package, and then be able to send you to the right people and make the right decisions before you go off in a rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
you're, we're very similar in that way, but kudos to you in going through all the depth of knowledge and all the areas of expertise, which ultimately translated, getting back to the deal that you did, uh, that's an example of having that real estate expertise, right? Like understanding all of the different components and putting it together and being like, hey, I know how this works. I know
Mhm.
these different things. Now you're that much more equipped. So how did doing that deal help you in your business, and how did your business help you in that deal? What was that? What were the connections there?
Yeah. Yeah, a bit of both. So my connections in the business, or what I did in my business to doing that deal, um, just gave me all the connections that I needed. Just made a couple of phone calls, was able to raise all the capital, was able to put together the pro forma and the spreadsheet to do the analysis. Being a mortgage broker is the reason I got the call to say, hey, I've got a person that needs to put this deal together. Um, Basically, all of it. The thing that was more outside of my wheelhouse were two things, and both were very easy to plug in. The first was never did a GPLP structure myself. Never actually was the one that put one of those together. I hire a lawyer, and they just do everything and tell you where to sign. So it wasn't that difficult, honestly. Secondly, um, the other thing that was kind of outside of my wheelhouse, particularly, is like the renovation aspect. But again, very minimal renovations were needed on this project, and we were able to mitigate that by getting a designer. And then that's also where I kind of pulled my wife into like, okay, this was 2021, the biggest mortgage year ever. We funded so many mortgages, still a record year and career year for me and for most mortgage brokers that have been doing deals for the last 10 years. And so bringing here on board to be like boots on the ground follow up, especially for any renovation project, you have to be like there calling them, make sure these guys show up on time. Like blue collar guys need a little bit more. You need to be in their face. You need to make sure that you're the squeaky wheel because they have other projects and other jobs, right? So you got to make sure, like, no, show up to my job right now. Like you said, you're going to be here yesterday. You're coming today, right? And you just have to be on them. So those are the two things that were kind of outside the wheelhouse. But the rest of it, the math and the numbers and all that part were in my wheelhouse. Negotiating and all that kind of stuff with all parties to get a fair deal on it. You kind of learn that along the ride, doing sales as your primary role in your job in your career for so long, right?
I'm as I'm building my and launching my training business, my coaching, consulting, training of teaching people multifamily. The problem now is that information is everywhere. Like it's too much, I
Mm-hmm.
find, right? And everybody, I think, has sort of got that same feeling that you can find information anywhere. So where's the value in the information you're providing? And and what I've come to realize is that out of all the things that I can teach people, out of all of the experience that we have, which when you've been in the business for any significant amount of time, there's just too much to teach unless someone wants to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars for your time to teach you everything that you know, and nobody wants to do that, of course. I boil that down to one very, very simple thing. Getting clarity on where people are at and where they're trying to go is essential for them to make any decision on any deal anywhere. I don't care what you're investing in, whether it's business or crypto or real estate or this country or that country. You have to have that clarity. But the next thing is you have to know how to find the deal.
Yeah.
Like you really have to know what the difference is between a good deal and a bad deal. And the only thing that shows you that is the numbers. And I just want to ask you, that deal, although it was your first one, if the numbers didn't pencil, or if you didn't know how to calculate the return, or you weren't able to show that 9 million cost versus a $12 million upside, I mean, would any of the other stuff mattered? Would any of it fallen into place? Would any of the other things even made sense?
I mean, how do you raise capital if you can't sell the numbers? I sent the spreadsheet to investors to review, and it's like, go ahead and break it and stress test it. Like, I've covered off everything in this. Here's a low, mid, and high expectation for how this deal is going to go. Right here are the three different attachments. Play around with the numbers yourself. Come back and ask me questions. When I had some pretty high level investors come back and ask me super basic questions, I knew, okay, they're doing it, you know?
You're on the
So
right track.
yeah, it comes down to the numbers. And although this was my first deal of this magnitude, I've been doing in real estate, like residential real estate investing, and did my first joint venture when I was 21. And I used a spreadsheet that I'd made at the time, which was much more basic, but it was a cash flow analysis spreadsheet. I actually made it initially for myself because I was looking at rental properties. And then I realized that actually investors a lot of the time didn't have a way of being able to map out and compare properties. So then I started to make it look a little prettier, started giving it away. And that's actually how I built my business substantially. Because then I'd go to these functions like Aussie Xerox conferences. He'd have 500 or 600 people at these things sometimes twice a year. And then I'd get up, do my presentation, then offer this for free. Just have to come to my booth and give me your email, and I'll email it to you. And I would get 150 to 200 new email contacts every show that I would do. And then you do this a whole bunch of times. The next thing you know, I'm 22 years old. I've got a database of like 1,000 people in my database. I send out a monthly newsletter. I get 5 to 6 mortgage leads every time, and the business just explodes. So even from a business perspective, I think it's an interesting concept of like creating a free item of value and then, you know, giving it away for free. And then people kind of like, oh, I want to use you. But a lot of people would say, hey, Kyle, I'm looking at these two rental properties. Which one should I buy? Property A or B? But they've already done the analysis. It's like, well, what's the difference in return on investment? How does that compare, right? And so it comes down to the math. If we didn't do the math, we'd have no investor. We'd have no deal, frankly. You know, you can't raise capital without this, and you can't even make a choice. Like, so many clients would have analysis paralysis. It's like, I don't know. These are two different deals. I don't know which one to do. And they do neither of them. Like, we'll just run the analysis and be like, oh, property A looks a little bit better than property B. Done. I'm going to do property A. Like, that just makes sense.
You're speaking my language, and I'm glad we're touching on this, because it's sometimes what I realize we take for granted as people that have been in the business for a long time. It's like and I've done exactly what you're talking about. I've created what I call the runway test, which is like, 1 minute underwriting. And it's the ability to quickly take the information from the person on the phone. And I normally have my calculator, and I'm like, oh, how many units and how much is the revenue? And I use my expenses. I'm like, oh, well, it's only worth this much. Well, that's something I know from years and years of experience. People are like, how the hell are you underwriting this thing in a minute? It's like, well, I'm not underwriting it in a minute, but I sure as heck know how to check the numbers to see if it's even worth talking about. And that's what a lot of people get trapped in. They spend their time in analysis paralysis, underwriting deals, or spending time on deals and due diligence, and send me this and send me that. And at the end of the day, like, you don't have a Kyle or a Guy in your back pocket, where you can just phone up and be like, hey, can you quickly just check this for me? Because you're looking at 100 deals at a time. But it's understanding what can protect someone, because it's the other thing you said was return on investment, because property A versus property B, I get asked all the time, is this a good deal? It's like, well, what is a good deal? Like, tell me what a good deal is. It's like, it's the same as like, how long is a piece of rope? Like, well, it depends. How long of rope are you looking for, right? And so the return analysis is just as important. First, the deal has to work, but then the return that deal makes has to speak to you. It has to be something that you're looking for. You might be good with a 5% return. I might be good with a 50.
Yeah.
The deal is still the same. Still makes money, but did it actually work for me? So how do you know, as a mortgage broker, we look at things the same way, and numbers drive everything. What differentiates the people that are coming in the door? Like, how do you know immediately when you're talking to a client? Like, how do you sift and sort through clients? Like, what's the indicator, other than that we're talking about the numbers here? But, for everybody that's watching this show, I'm trying to teach people how to walk the walk, how to be in this game. Because you don't like wasting time. I don't like
Mm.
wasting time. Nobody likes wasting time. What can somebody do when they're coming to a guy like you to show that they've done their part of it so that they're not just coming in blindly expecting you to do all the work? What's a little bit of the work that they can do to give you the impression that they're doing, that they're different than the 99% of people that you see come in doing none of the work?
I think clients that come in prepared and have their information, ideally have an idea of what questions they want answered. Very important to know where they want to go. So a lot of the time, what ends up happening is if you know where you're at right now and you've got the documents, and maybe you actually don't even know where you're at because you don't know financially if you qualify or not. But like, hey, I have the documents so that the broker knows where I'm at today. But the other component to this this is often missed by both broker and client is I've always found that the differentiator for me was always, okay, well, where are you going? Because if I know that you want to own 10 properties in 10 years, that's a totally different structure and game plan than it is if you just want to buy one rental property and be done with it. But what ends up happening is a lot of people get stuck talking about the transaction. I want to buy a rental property. Okay, great. Here's your approval for your rental property. But are you wanting to buy 10 more of these, or is this just the one and done? Because then it comes down to deal structure. You don't want to just buy the first one in a personal name and then you realize 2 or 3 into it, like, oh, we wanted to buy 10. Well, why didn't we put these in a company name then, right? Or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So I think that it's important to know, okay, you need to be very clear and succinct and have all of your stuff organized so we know, okay, where are you at right now? So make it easy on your broker, please. It's just, we're going to need a lot of documents. It's always going to be a shock to you every single time. You're like, oh my God, you need that too. That's just the way it is. If you want to get $1 million, you got to jump through some hoops. But then also the key components missing with most people is most brokers do that and they need your documents. But the components missing is where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? Because then if you communicate that with us, it's like, oh, well, you want to be, you want 10 properties. That's this. Well, you don't have enough capital to do this. So you need to learn how to do joint ventures and you need to figure that part out, right? You need to find really good deals and you need to learn how to learn these skills, not that skill. And so I think it really comes down to it. And then the other component too that you kind of alluded to too, Guy, is what kind of deal are you looking for? Are you focusing on cash flow? Are you focusing on capital appreciation? What is the nature of the deal that you're looking for? Because then a good broker would be like, hey, I know that you just said that you found this good deal, but you told me in your first call that this was your objective. 10 years from now, you want this. I just want you to know that if you do this capital appreciation play that has zero cash flow, you won't be able to do the 10 deals over 10 years thing until this one's like cleared and clean and off the books because it's a big mortgage with no rental income coming in or whatever the case may be, right? In general, that is what comes up. And I want to make one key point on this that I think is really insightful, and I use it quite often, is when you're looking at investment in general, land is what goes up in value, right? So usually when you buy land and then you're trying to upzone it and put more units on it, generally speaking, it's the land value that goes up because in general, even if you're not forcing the density to increase, density generally is slowly going to increase, especially in major urban centers or close to them. So usually land values go up. But when you're looking at cash flow, it's usually building that produces cash flow. Yeah. So when you start to look at it, if you had, as an example, 2 lots side by side, same size lot, but one is one house and then one is a duplex that's basically, double the square footage, you're probably getting almost double the rent because it's double the house. Now, if you had 2 houses side by side, same size house, one of the lots is double the size of the other lot, you're probably not getting double the rent. It's probably maybe an extra $100 or $200 because, hey, maybe that person has big dogs and they like to have a big yard to run around in, but generally you don't generate cash flow. So so now it's like, okay, buildings produce cash flow, but land creates appreciation. And so it's important to then you think about, okay, what am I investing in? If I want capital appreciation, you need the dirt. If you want a cash flow, then you need to be buying building effectively. And I think that that's a really high level concept, and it's easy to apply to a lot of your different investments. When you're looking at different investments, you're like, what am I looking for? Like, oh, right, this is a bunch of dirt. It's not going to produce cash flow. It's going to produce capital appreciation, most likely.
You took the words out of my mouth, and it's why I love you, man. And it's why people appreciate doing business with guys that have a bigger, or gals with that have a bigger vision, right? It's that experience of looking at things. The foundation of everything that I do in my training is exactly that. I call it my passport. You know, my whole thing is flight based. Ultimate Real Estate Lifestyle is the destination, but that destination is different for everybody. You nailed it. Cash, what does that look like? Is it for you, for lifestyle? Are you building business? Are you just doing something to hand down to your kids? That destination is different for everybody, but we're all flying there. We're all, we're trying to get there as quickly as possible. And you can't go anywhere without your passport. You can't travel without your passport. So what I do on my intake is I design people's investor passport. And that's all of the things that we're talking about, which is, what is your capital resources? What is your experience? What is the time capacity that you have to spend on it? What is your role? What is your intended role in that? And then what is the time frame that you're looking to accomplish that? And then out of that comes your deal box, right? Like I call your boarding pass, because you can't get on a plane without a boarding pass, and you can't get into a deal without knowing what criteria you want. So it's all based on that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to ask you. You've already kind of said it, but how much, if someone had their passport information ready and their boarding pass deal box, which paints the entire picture of where they're at and where they're trying to go, like, how much does that change the process from you as a broker and a professional in this industry? Like, what does that do for you, and what does that do for your clients in that type of a transaction?
Well, it makes it a lot easier to fulfill that particular transaction because we have all the information, we know where you're heading. But also, I think importantly, it gives us an opportunity to jump in and say, hold on, is there a reason? I know that you said that you want to do this deal and that's a means to this, but like, have you considered this or that, right? And be able to a certain extent, interject and just get them to sit back and really think about like whether this is actually serving their needs, right? Because otherwise, if you don't have that information, you can't have that. And we do have conversations sometimes where clients say, "Oh, I want to do this," okay, and then they have a deal, and it's like, this is totally different than what I think your master plan is. It's just not the same. So you'll also find most people, they want their commission and they want to kill a deal that's right in front of them. But I think it's more important to have a long-term relationship with the client. I've always been a proponent of that. And it's not just, oh, you've got a deal, let's close it and let's make money and move on. It's more about like, if you are successful in achieving your objectives, you'll keep coming back over and over and over again. And we both will have a fulfilling relationship together where I can continue to help you grow and you'll be growing in the direction that you want to go. Because I think it's unreasonable for clients to know that this deal might move them in the opposite direction. And maybe they didn't consider a tax consequence when structuring something in this way or whatever, right? Because it's hard to get really good holistic advice in this business, to be honest. It's really tough.
It's what I know in the coaching business as well. In the coaching, consulting, and in any sales and any offer of any information, anybody selling you for any aspect of life, you've got sort of 95% of the people out there that'll sell you anything that you're willing to buy. And despite your long-term goals, and the feedback that I get on a regular basis in this business is, does this work for me? Like, how is this going to apply to me? And my answer to that is, it doesn't apply to everybody. That's the problem. It's so general. The information is so general, and there's so many nuances to this business. I can't for the life of me even begin to pretend that I'm serving someone in this business if I don't have that lens of where they're trying to go. How am I supposed to tell someone or guide them, especially through the wins and or more so the losses that I've been through and the pains of projects that didn't go my way at the end of it? It was my choice and my decision to go down that path for my own reasons. But, when people are making decisions into these investments, these aren't small decisions. These aren't like, oh, if you make a mistake, it's, you can fix it in a couple of weeks. Like, these are lifelong commitments that people are making with their time and their money. And if you're not clear about what it is that you're trying to get out of it, how can you serve someone properly? How could I recommend, you going to spend 2 years of your life going down this path if you don't have it? And I already knew this about you, Kyle, but our viewers obviously don't. It's a massive part about why I respect you and everybody else in the in their business that has that sense of integrity, because that's what it is. Hey, look, like this sale would be great as it always is, but what's really going on here? Like, let's just take a step back and look, like, is this truly what you want? And is it what you're looking for? Like, does this serve you and your purpose? Because if not, I don't want to be a part of it. And
Yep.
if it does, I'll help you figure out a way. And then everything else becomes easy. Like you said, those two aspects that you learned in your deal, which I wanted to come back to as well. You know, the two nuances were the general partnership, the GPLP, and the construction. And those are pretty big components, like as simple as they may be, you know, but you would have never had a good experience figuring those out if you didn't have a deal that worked. Like if the deal didn't align and the money wasn't there, you know, none of that stuff would have mattered. And that's my message to most people. It's like, don't worry about all of this stuff. Like, you'll learn it.
Yeah.
You'll get through it. Like, when you need that help, it'll be there for you. But you know, if you're not into something that works, if you don't know how to find a deal, you know, none of that really matters. And so, you know, I can't talk enough about this, because I feel that it is a missing component for people. Everybody's lost and looking for guidance, and it's hard to believe what's out there. But if it sounds like you and I see things the same way, which is, look, the more clarity you can have when you come to me, the more value I can offer you in the transaction. And that's what I'm really anchoring people in. So we're like an hour into this, but I could talk to you forever. I do. How many files do you look at on a monthly basis, Kyle? Like, just to give people an indication of volume for you.
Yeah, we fund like 25 to 35 deals a month on average, and then realistically, what that means is that in general, stats in the, like, for our office and in general in the mortgage industry, is that usually it's about 4 leads, i.e. 4 initial phone calls or whatnot, turn into about 2 applications, turns into 1 mortgage funded. So there's like 100 plus potential conversations. And then some of them are us telling our clients, no, renew with your bank, they're going to have a better rate, or, you know what, you're in a good spot there, or whatever it is, or you don't qualify. And then a certain number of them turn into applications, and then some of them just never buy or whatever, but lots of conversations. So, I mean, it's in the thousands, and it might be in the 5-figure numbers as far as like how many mortgage conversations and how many unique client mortgage conversations I've had, because funding that kind of volume for, obviously I haven't done that kind of volume my entire career, but just in the last 10 years, it would be between 200 to 300 closed transactions a year. So we're already talking about, 2,000 to 3,000 closed transactions, which, that's easily getting over 10,000 conversations in my career. So it's a lot.
It's a ton of volume, and it's only through that. I mean, you got to sift and sort through yours as well. How do you sift and sort quickly through the things that are worth spending more time on, and those that don't? Ours is the numbers, and they start with the numbers when you're looking at deals. That's the sift and sort. Does it even make sense financially? For you as a mortgage broker, which is a massive part of anybody's real estate investing game, how do you sift and sort through your clients?
So I think it's interesting because it's a bit of a give and take relationship. And I can see that because I have staff and train my staff on different components of this business. And so I really try to trim down what is the highest and best use of my time, which is mostly strategy calls, putting out fires, and, getting things done. And then of course, driving the business and part of, marketing, et cetera. But for the most part, when I look at it, if I look at like the key components to the mortgage process, the first call is to gather information, assess the circumstances, assess the situation, make sure we're a good fit to work together, and then to set expectations right off the bat. So I like to make sure that right off the bat, a customer may come in with a certain expectation. I want to make sure that we say, you know what, yeah, based on the verbal conversation, you're probably in the ballpark, or you know what, that's going to be really tough. So we're happy to go through the motions and collect the information, but I want to set expectations. You might need a cosigner, you might need more down payment or whatever. Because I think that that's really important, where sometimes brokers, especially if you're busy, you get in the habit of, oh, well, just send me all your documents and then I'll let you know what's possible, which frankly, we do need that, right? We can't confirm what's doable, but I also we also want to make sure that clients come in and know, well, am I even in the ballpark? Because it's a lot of work to get all those documents organized too. So that's where like you get your calculator. That for those of you that are watching the video, if this is me on video, Guy, I love your calculator. It's like the size of your head. It's like huge. You know, you got big numbers. You're talking about how we're the old crew now, and this thing is like massive, guys. Like I tell you, Guy's got the biggest calculator I've seen, other than like literal senior calculators. The buttons are as big as his eyeballs, um, but like I can underwrite a file on the fly as long as there's not too many complications. Then for the clients that do have a ton of properties, I built a tool. It's a spreadsheet, but it's a tool where fill in your portfolio and send it back with your tax returns. And then without going through a credit check and all this stuff, it's way more effort to go through and collect all the documents. You just fill in the spreadsheet to the best of your ability. And then I'll tell you if I think we're in the ballpark or not first. And then if it makes sense, we can take the next step, right? So like minimal inputs with the maximum output, I guess, is like what we all do as business people, right? As a real estate investor, it's the same thing, which is like, I'm not going to run through an entire debt coverage ratio analysis on a commercial building before I just go, what are the gross rents and what's the property value, right? It's just like, what's the first math? Is it even going to be in the ballpark? Well, those rents are really low as a function of the price. So it doesn't matter where the expenses are. This thing's out of whack, right? So I'm not even going to bother with it. So you get all these, you kind of learn these filtering systems where it's the very first question you can ask. What's the next question? What's the next question? Even goes into like, when I call a lender, if I have 3 problems on the file, I might call one lender and ask them question number 1 or item number 1, because I know that that's going to be the most likely thing that's going to kill the deal with that lender. So then it's a 15-second call instead of a 10-minute call. I'll go through items 2 and 3. Yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. And then you ask item 1, they're like, oh no, that kills the deal, Kyle. Like you can't do that. So you start to learn like, okay, what's the most likely question that's going to kill my deal with this lender? Ask that one first and then go to second and go to the third. So ultimately, it's an efficiency thing. And then what you do is once you've collected the information, set expectations, now if I've delivered that and delivered that clearly, now I'm not touching the file again until we have all the documents. I've already told you what I think is roughly high level doable without documents. Now we need the documents if you want that next step. And so then it's my team that's collecting everything and going through that. And we have a pretty good process for collecting documents and making sure that that's as smooth as possible. Collecting documents sucks, and we're working on some AI and systems that can improve that significantly. But ultimately, you know, that's a crappy part of the process. But I think that if we deliver a good expectation based on the verbal, then okay, well, next step is I'm not going to have 5 more phone calls with you until I get your stuff. That's just the reality of it. I don't have the time for it. I have clients that have committed to getting us their documents. They deserve the attention, right? And that's just being real.
Well, that's it. It is, and we don't respect anybody in this business that wastes our time, and we can't expect anything to be treated any differently as a professional. And it anchors back into that clarity aspect. I mean, I got to run my tools by you because I've created very, very similar tools here recently. So I'd love to see yours, and I want you to see mine. But it's the same thing. Like how do you sift and sort through 100 deals in a day in minutes? And it's that quick filter. It's like, is this even worth my time or isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's with that information that you can talk to the seller or the agent and just say, look, like here's the 3 major problems with this deal, very similar to what you're talking about. Is there flexibility on these or not? Well, no, awesome. Thank you very much. On to the next deal. Like it's so simple and people overcomplicate it. Well, I want to know the other 100 things I have to do. Why? What's the point in doing that if it doesn't even make sense on the surface? And so having that clarity is cool. And my calculator, it's funny because even the solar piece is broken. I think this is one of my original from like my welding business. But
I had to make a comment. You showed it earlier, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but I had to bring it back. I had to. It was in my mind.
and I appreciate it because it's so simple. It's like my phone. I'm using my phone as the camera right now, and I got a bunch of other things. I literally have to press 3 buttons to get into my calculator on my phone, and that's just time I don't have. Like it's right here, literally. How many units? What's the revenue? Boom, there's the value. It's not for me, and that's how people. And it's a very valuable lesson in this complicated world we're living in. That simplicity and clarity is still trumps all. Simple, effective steps for you and your clients. It is here's the high level. Next step is all the documents. And if someone comes to you with clarity, their investor passport, their boarding pass, their full picture, I mean, that's just icing on the cake. And it sounds like, if you got that type of person in the door, like they're top of the list. You understand the quick assessment. You can get me all your info, and you know where you're at and where you're going. It's like there's really nothing better someone could do for themselves in their planning, whether it's a broker or a realtor or a partner or raising money or any of those things. It's all the same stuff that we all deal with. So that's fantastic. It's awesome. It's awesome that you have those tools, because if there is anybody watching that wants that tool, you can comment on the podcast, or you can reach out to Kyle, which we're going to give information in a second. And we are getting to the end, and we can talk about this forever and ever and ever, because it's very cool and it translates very well. But you talked about a deal that went well, but your personal experience on the other deal that I know you wanted to talk about. There's a reality to the business, and all of us as professionals, we're all in this, like, we're just people doing business as well, right? Like, we're not special. We just have more experience than some in this area of business. But when we're doing deals, everything's real. Talk about the reality of the other deal, because I think there's going to be a lot of value for people listening to that as well.
Yeah. So initially, my wife and I wanted to buy a vacation rental, and then we're looking at, okay, well, maybe we can do this little one ourselves, and then, maybe if we do this one, then maybe we would bring in an investor to do that one. And then next thing you know, it's like, there's 5 units in a building in downtown Victoria. Okay, that's really cool. And it already has, there's a laundry room in the building. It's already run as Airbnb and whatnot. Great location. And then next thing you know, we're buying those 5 units. It's in a 7-unit building, so we own most of the units. We asked the lady while we're going through due diligence, who owns the other 2. She said, my ex-boyfriend. I'm like, okay, can I have his number? She's like, when you go firm, I'll give you his number. So I'm like, okay. Then we go firm, get his contact info, reach out to him. He's like, oh, I'm not selling, and kind of hangs up. I'm like, that sucks. Okay.
I can see why she wanted you to go firm before giving you the number.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So try again though. I'm just, not trying to be pushy, but we will own the majority of the units in the building. We will have control over the strata. I just want to be, clear with you on that. And if you're thinking of selling, then, maybe now is a good time. And then I let it go. And then he came back. And I said, okay, well, what are you thinking of getting for the units? He's like, well, I won't take a dime under this number. And in my head, I'm like, that number's great. But I'm like, ooh, I don't know. That's a bit high for me. I'm going to have to think about that.
Poker face.
Give me a little bit of time. I'm going to need a couple of days because it's a bit more expensive than I wanted to pay. Let me think about it. Got off the phone. 2 seconds later on my phone with my lawyer, I'm like, I need you to write up this contract now. Let's get this thing papered like now, right? So circle back to him, and I got the other 2 units tied up. Now, one of the key points that we went through is, number one, buying short-term rentals. I mean, when I was doing my presentations, I was always talking about municipal pressure on short-term rentals in general. And so I was looking at, okay, how do we mitigate this? So we had 2 ways or 2 methods. Number one was that the city had mentioned that the units were legal non-conforming. So if the existing use, i.e. short-term rental, continued by current ownership, then that would mean that you're allowed to continue to short-term rent it. And by the way, fast forward a couple of years, that is actually what the BC government stripped away, is the legal non-conforming rights to operate short-term rentals. So that right did get stripped away. But there's one more in there that we noticed, because I pulled up the zoning, and the zoning for this downtown core area permits hotel use. No definition of hotel, but just says you can also operate as a hotel. And that was also a comment that they had. And they said, well, if you own the whole building, then you can also operate as a hotel. I'm like, oh, okay. Keeping that in our back pocket, but maybe we should just own all 7 units anyways, because we don't want to just renovate the units themselves. We also want to do common areas and all that kind of stuff. And it just makes sense to double down and own all of them. So I ended up buying all the units, doing massive renovations. My wife lived there for 7 months doing all the renos. And then what we did is we actually, because these are short-term rentals, we looked at why people may be traveling to Victoria, and then modified and tweaked each of the rooms and units to be designed in that way. So, as an example, we have one of them that's like all black and white furniture throughout. It's the orca pad, and so it
Gotcha.
has like big photos of the orcas, and all that stuff.
So you got
We have, what was that?
themed.
Yes, exactly. Another one was the Butchard Gardens, so garden theme. So another one, West Coast theme, has like actual indigenous masks and totem pole in it and all this kind of stuff. It's really cool. So,
Phenomenal.
really, really cool units, and we were getting good rents for it. But the government banned short-term rentals, and it's been a 2-year journey of us. Okay, now we're not able to be on all of the Airbnb, on Airbnb at all, which is honestly our target market was always millennials. They're willing to pay more for an experience, whereas hotel guests are kind of like, I expect service and I expect somebody to answer the phone at midnight when I call because I can't figure out how to turn on a TV. It's like, have you tried the power button? But I digress. And it's been a journey for us, but we're at a point now where we're almost at the finish line of being able to get a hotel business license, and then we'll be able to go back on Airbnb and Vrbo and do all of this. But it's been a journey of having to put tons of money into this. We've been paying lawyers to fight the government. We've been paying lawyers to investigate all angles of approach here on this property. We've been paying architects because we need it for a building permit. We now have to make sure that 10% of our units are wheelchair accessible, because a hotel needs 10% of your units, i.e. one, to be wheelchair accessible. And that means we have to blow out walls in one of the units at a cost of like $100,000 to do this. And we're like, oh, come on. Like, it's just, so all of this while we're cash flow negative or neutral, and then having to put money into it to keep feeding it because we can't be on all of the channels and platforms to properly rent it. So it's one of these things where it's like, I mean, there has been some thoughts like, do we just dump it now and take it on the chin and like literally lose all of our money? Or do we double down, put more money into this, hopefully get a hotel business license, and then maybe we'll actually make out with bandits, because if you can't beat them, join them, right? And hotel rates are way higher than, a short-term rental rate.
Right.
So, and keep in mind that all of the supply that was available in Victoria is now gone for short-term rentals, right? It's all hotels. So in theory, we should actually do better once all the dust settles, but it has not been a fun journey. It's been really stressful, and it's difficult too when you raise capital through investors that have expectations, and then things like this happen, and it's just, there's a lot of pressure on you to perform and to find the solutions for this. And we've been digging really deep to find solutions and get creative to get to this point. But at the end of the day, money is money, and it's tough when you just haven't had the returns that you expected or projected.
No, music to my ears, and not necessarily great music, because it's what most people have been dealing with over these last few years, including myself, on all the developments. What do you do? The decision when plan A doesn't work and plan B falls through, and you're starting to work on plan C, D, and E. It's not really about getting a return anymore. It's about capital preservation. Like, that's really what these deals turn into. And, that's the protecting the downside of these situations where, when you look at this deal again, if you were to look at this deal again, what would be the one thing that you would change? Like, the way that you looked at it, what would be the one? I have my answer of how I would look at it differently, but I'd like your answer, just going through what you've gone through. What would be the one thing that you would look at differently before going into it?
More analysis on long-term rentals, on what the income would have been to just convert to long-term. But also at the time, interest rates were lower. Of course, we went variable on these things. So that was another issue. But more analysis on the feasibility. But again, like, the number of available rental units for 500-ish square feet condos just skyrocketed all at the same time, because all of those units are getting rid of. So there's just a lot of problems and challenges with that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Obviously, in hindsight, we would not have done the deal. Let's be real. Let's be honest. It's tough because we did due diligence. We had two paths forward if something came up, and we are now going down path number 2. I do think the number one thing I probably would have looked at is the way that we built this was that my wife in particular would be like running the day-to-day on this project. And there was projected to be enough income in it and the way that the deal was structured was that investors would get the first hurdle, and then we'd be, a splitting a good chunk over and above that, and our projections with the market expectations and everything in that area, we're like, this should be easy to hit. So going to be a pretty low effort type of business. We'll make 5 to 7 grand a month running it, and have this massive investment. Then we were, put in some capital, but not as much as the investors did. Like, the deal made sense from that perspective. What we didn't do legally was protect ourselves on the downside, which is you can't get into a deal where you end up working for free and then some. Like, it ended up being a point where, like, my wife was working for free full time, because now all of a sudden a short-term rental versus a hotel, totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it just became like a very difficult and tenuous thing with investors, which is like, what do we do now? Like, I don't know. Like, this is a hotel now. Now guests are calling her all the time. They demand more service, and she's still working for free. She can't get a job now because she's got this job that doesn't pay her anything. You can imagine the misalignment in her life when she's like, what am I doing here? Like, should we just get rid of, like, what are you, and it's tough because my investor hat is saying, like, now's not the right time to get rid of it. But, like, you also can't keep working in this like this.
No.
That doesn't make sense either. So yeah, difficult scenario all around. And I see all perspectives. I see investor perspectives. I see our perspectives. I see all of it. But it was a tough situation, and hopefully we get through it, and hopefully have some good news in the next month or two once the renos are done. But it's going to be a journey, and I just hope that in maybe 10 years we can sell this building and maybe make $1 million, and we'll be able to look past the crap that we had to put up with during the deal.
Yeah, well, not that hindsight of, yeah, sure, wouldn't have done the deal. I mean, I could say that about every single deal that I've done as well, and I think everybody can as well. So, there's no mud on anybody's face for these decisions, because how many things can you protect? And legislation is one of those things that you can't foresee that. Maybe if it's in the writing and in the queue already and you just missed it, that's one thing. But that's what a lot of these tailwinds of all the decisions that are being made in this country are really changing the landscape for everybody and making them second guess investing in general, but investing in this country. And, I kind of wanted to segue into that. Cause like looking at the long-term projection, I mean, that was my angle as well. But if you did that, it doesn't work. I don't have to look at your numbers to know that investment structure, that deal didn't work on long-term rental projections. Not at the strata pricing that you would have had to have paid for that building. That wasn't
Correct.
the play. The play was change the use, increase the revenue, which is a pretty common approach. And had it have worked, you would have hit all your numbers. I have no doubt about that. But these challenges are real in college. So two things are standing out to me in those comments. Getting yourself trapped into a deal where you're working for free. I know a thing or two about that.
Yeah.
It's you always, as an investor, want to be optimist, especially as an operator. You hope that things are going to go as planned. You plan for things to go as planned, but you forget about the cost of operating the deal. The returns on the back end are so far away. I didn't realize. Probably the one biggest thing I overlooked when getting started into the real estate, into the multifamily. I just thought, hey, I'm going to buy a multifamily building and I'm going to be financially free. It's going to have passive income. Like, it's going to just spit off all of this money. All I have to do is just own the damn building. Yeah. Man, was that ever like tough to be like, what do you mean I just bought 5 buildings and I'm not going to see any reward for the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what is up with, and I have to continue working in it. And we're dealing with investors and still giving returns and managing the asset and dealing with the problems. And even though the building can't afford to pay me, like, I still have to continue doing that.
Yep.
It's the biggest reason I do what I do on the training and consulting side, is to protect people from making those mistakes. So they don't wind up spending their life grinding in something that is not giving them the reward that they're looking for. So that comes back to those numbers we're talking about. Most people miss, because back to your story about the $80,000 lawyer bill, that's one bill. But the lenders get paid, the brokers get paid, the lawyers get paid, the sellers get paid, the tax man gets paid, the people you hire get paid, everybody gets paid. And the interest on the loan gets paid, like all of that gets paid before you receive $1.
Yep.
Right? And so, message loud and clear in that regard. It's like underwriting the numbers has to include the time that you're putting into it. Because if it's
Yeah.
not, you're going to get trapped exactly like you are. So, and like I have been, and I still am. Like I'm still in developments that I'm doing for free because they don't have capital anymore. They don't have any more return. They have messes based on from legislation and deals that we're doing, and it's just not fun. And we just don't
Yeah.
want to be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
But segueing into the effects, what that's happening, because there's macro things happening here, Kyle. You're one person, I'm one person, but we're not the only ones suffering. In fact, most people in this business and industry have been suffering. What kind of an impact do you see, not only in your business, but macro? How do you see the attitude of investors changing and the perception of changing, and where are they going? What's happening right now? Like what's going on?
I mean, de-risking like a lot, right? And I just, as a general concept, people are feeling a lot more uh, hesitant to invest in BC, in Canada in general. It's just we're just turning away investment. We're making people feel like you can't enterprise in this country. And I definitely felt it, especially when the short-term rental ban came amidst all of the other stuff that I've been dealing with. And you, like in the mortgage industry, it was like the industry was already changing and getting harder. And then it was like literally there was about 9 different policy changes from government in like a 24-month period. It's like bang, 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 bang. Harder to
Like
do business,
mortgage
more
in the
costs.
mortgage business.
Yeah, harder to do business, more costs, layer upon layer upon layer. It's like, can you just effing stop for a second? Like, it gets to a point where I've never thought about this ever, but there was a point where I was like, do I need to leave Canada and do something different? Because this is just not working. This is crazy. Like, I'm a good broker and I do well, but to look at all of these changes and everything that was coming down the pipeline, it's like my highest and best use might be to do something different in a totally different country at this point, you know? And I never thought that I would ever think that, Guy. I never thought that. But I know a lot of other people that are having the same thing, same thought. And so, yeah, I don't want to get too political, but it's frustrating to see. And it's tough. Politicians constantly promise the world and they don't know where the money's going to come from. And you keep just borrowing from tomorrow, borrowing from tomorrow.
Yeah.
And tomorrow is starting to come around the corner right now. And it's only going to get worse with the deficits and everything that we're proposing. Like, we need to just stop. The government needs to get smaller, not bigger, and we need to get control of things. So, yeah, it's tough. I don't want to sound too much like a curmudgeon. I guess we are getting older, Guy. We're talking about politics, hey?
Yeah, dude, I still feel like we shouldn't have to be talking about politics at our age. We're
Yeah.
still in our prime. Like I consider us in our prime. Like 30s was it's kind of your prime, but you're still a cowboy. Most millionaires aren't made until they're the late 40s, early 50s, and I can see why now. It's because you're going to lose it all at some point. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. But Kyle, it's like there's so much pain in doing what we do already.
Yeah.
Let alone the changes that are forcing people out. And it's a big part of my messaging. This isn't politics anymore. This is affecting our life generationally. This isn't like who you like more or who you like less anymore. It's about our future. And we can see the writing on the wall right now is that all the things that are being put in place are just giving us more and more reason to not do business here. Yeah. I can't invest. No, everybody, like there's not one person I've talked to in the last 12 months that is looking at a piece of paper that shows that a deal pencils.
Yeah, I know.
And that's just penciling from like, will you even does it even make a little bit of money? Let alone, partners and fees and upside and all the rest of the stomaching that you have to do to get the thing in place. So it's not a surprise to me to hear you say it, but I said the same thing that you're saying in the last year here, is that I never thought that I would be in a position ever of talking about potentially leaving this country from a life and a business standpoint. It's really, really sad. But we figure it out. And more to the point of people coming to people with expertise and having a depth of knowledge it's not over. It's just focusing in a different area. How do you pivot? How do you
Yeah.
get your money to work in a smart way? Are you sure you want to make this move? Is this really the hole you're trying to go down? Stop trying to make deals work or make the numbers work, and start looking at what is the outcome that you're looking for. And I think more and more people are realizing that we have to start stepping out of our box. So we won't get any more political on it, but it sounds like you're seeing the same things that I'm seeing. British Columbia, I think, is probably one of the worst places in Canada right now for a bunch of reasons. But I think Canada in general, suffering from the same thing, which is why I'm building an international organization now. So now I'm looking at North and Central America, and I'm applying the value add strategies everywhere, same as you'll apply any of your experience in helping people do that. Are you seeing people invest outside of the country? Some of your clients like expressing that? Are you seeing that happen, or are they still on the fence per se? Like, is everybody in a holding, or do you just see action happening elsewhere? That's kind of one of my wrap up questions here before we shut her down.
The vast majority are just on hold, but there are more clients talking to me about how they've been doing other things. I had lunch with a client a week ago, and he started going down in the U.S. in a big way about 5 or 6 years ago, and he's built up a massive portfolio down there. It's just like it would be almost impossible to have built that here.
And so
And
where was that?
It's in the U.S.,
Yeah.
mostly in like San Diego and a couple other spots where
Yeah.
yeah, there's opportunities abroad. And another client that's selling everything here, she realtor, she's like over it, as many realtors are. She's like over it, selling everything she's got here, and she's gonna run a hotel in Colombia or something like that, something random. But it was like, wow, that's a very different change. I mean, like I think she might have some family or something like that with some family connections down there. So I am seeing that a bit more, but the vast majority of people are just saying, I'm just going to sit on the sidelines and de-risk it. And frankly, the stock market has been like has had unbelievable highs in the last little while, and I keep thinking like that. How does it go any higher than this, right? But it keeps going higher, and some people are thinking, well, why would I buy real estate when I'm doing well over here and I'm basically doing nothing? It's like no effort, and I'm doing well. I think we may see a shift here, and when is the stock market has had a lot of losses in the last little while. So there's one thing, and then last thing I kind of want to leave off of, because a lot of people are wondering what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
Everything is cycles. It's always supply and demand is the core of everything. And so if you're a realtor and last year was the worst year ever or not ever, but in the last 20 years, well, guess what happens? Number one, you if you have less demand or less transactions that year, then in general, in the future, at some point, it will catch up because things, people don't just say, I'm never going to buy a property ever because 2025 sucked. They just may not have done it that year.
That's right.
And so, we realistically, when COVID happened, we pulled future transactions forward to 2021 and 2022. And we did too many there, which then caused less to happen later. And so it's all these cycles and they have trend lines. And I'm starting to notice now that prices are finally falling enough where clients and investors are starting to come back into the market. And if it gets worse and worse, then guess what's going to happen? More people will jump back in. There'll be more activity if the prices drop to a certain point. And so everything has a cycle to it. We're in a tough cycle. It's been a longer, more pronounced cycle than you and I have both ever seen in our careers, Guy. And perhaps it might be the worst we ever see. Who knows?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it is a cycle, and if it's really bad right now, things do adjust. The number, if you're running a business and things are really tough right now, other people will leave that business, and if you invent and create and find better ways of serving your customers while other people are just throwing up their hands and giving up, then what's happening is you're actually taking a bigger piece of maybe a pie that's shrinking or maintaining its size, but you're taking a bigger piece of the smaller pie. And then when the pie does change and that cycle goes the other direction and the pie gets bigger and your cut is a bigger percentage than you used to have, then boom, you expand very quickly. So, just keep that in mind. Everything's a cycle and it will eventually get better. I just couldn't tell you when.
No, and nor should we. It's not our business to be able to tell. And I appreciate that insight because it's the message that that resonates with what I'm telling my clients and everybody else as well. This is the time where you need to prepare. Get the knowledge, get the information. Underwrite everything that's out there, even though it may not make sense right now. Because when it does change, and as soon as it does start to make sense, you want to be the person that's ready and not the person that's a year or two behind that now has to catch up while everybody's catching the wave upward. So this is where the real stars shine. You know, we dig in, we go through our pains, we suffer through these times, but we persevere by doing the work to get prepared for when we know times are going to change. And that's, I love you for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to love you for more when we're done this, because we're going through it together. And I think there's a lot of people that resonate with what's going on. So Kyle, I've got 20 other questions that I can't ask because we're already at over our time limit, but I'd love to get you back and do this again. And I want to check in. I'm also gonna what's the best place for people to get a hold of you, especially for your mortgage underwriting tool? What's the best place?
Yeah, if you send an email to info@greenmortgageteam.ca, we have a lot of tools and things that can help you with your business. And then our website, we're also going through a massive update over the next 2 months and adding a ton of tools and downloadable content onto the website in the next little bit. So that's greenmortgageteam.ca. And if you do want a copy of my book, Rockstar Real Estate Investing, for those of you that are kind of newer or early stages in investing, it's a lot of the fundamentals on investing. You know, how do you calculate return on investment? What's a good deal? How do you do the analysis? That kind of thing. So if you do want a copy of that, then email us and send us your address, and we'll happily pop a copy in the mail.
That's fantastic, man. Well, great value. And I got a ton of value just out of the conversation. I know our viewers are going to as well. And you and I will be talking soon. So for everybody that was here to watch us, thank you for watching. I know that you got value out of it. Please, if you're thinking about anything in the mortgage broking world, you need anybody to help you in your corner on the residential or commercial side, Kyle Green is the man. A good friend of mine. I know he's going to help you and take you to good places. So without further ado, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for watching the episode of The Ultimate Real Estate Lifestyle, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.